Well, Michael, I want to fast forward a little bit to 1993 and another cover song, as it turns out, "The Power of Love."
Wow,
Uh,
was that a cover song?
yeah,
Oh, right. It was
yeah, it was Jennifer Rush.
Rush. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, arrangement wise, pretty dissimilar to what she did.
Yeah.
But
I
this
never heard her version. It was,
I only listened to it as a consequence of this interview, and doing the research about where
oh,
that song came from.
yeah.
And I listened to it and I was like, yeah, I mean, like, it was fine, but I think that certainly it made sense that this version had so much more popularity and radio play and is still,
Yeah.
probably the version that people would remember if they're prompted.
Right.
Power of Love.
Yeah.
Was this the first time that you worked with Celine Dion?
Yeah.
It was.
And it was cool because she and her husband were at the session and she had already done her finished master vocals, which was really cool to play to
Yeah.
with the backgrounds and everything. Usually there's a scratch vocal.
Uh,
And the cool thing was at the end of the session, which everyone was jazzed because I had done all these guitars on the song, and she really liked it, and her husband Renee was loving it and stuff too. And so Humberto Gatica, who was the engineer, he took like 20 minutes and did a mix, a
uh,
really really good mix with the guitars up and
uh,
stuff. And that's the record that you hear.
yeah.
And after that, after the session, David tried some bells and whistles and some other stuff that they didn't want
They took
that.
away.
They wanted that they took a DAT away from
Yeah.
the session that Hum made.
Yeah.
And I remember Celine had told this story of like losing that DAT and they
Uh,
were in a panic,
yeah.
and then they found it
Yeah.
and that became the record. That was the mix,
Yeah.
and it kind of like showed me because when you do a guitar overdub session, there's, the guitar's up in the
Yeah.
mix. And you're so used to that, then you hear when everything's been put in perspective,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to hear it sound like it sounded at the session,
Yeah.
like on the radio,
Yeah.
was really great. I love that. That didn't happen a lot. In fact, a lot of these tunes, it's like, you know, in the 60s and the 70s and stuff, there was more, well, definitely more like iconic guitar
Yeah.
starts the song,
Right.
riff, bass thing. But like in the 90s, so much of the stuff that I was doing, I mean, you can't make a blanket statement, but for American pop music,
Yeah.
it was more like fitting in with synths and being like a texture
Yeah.
or like being part of the record, but not like upfront stuff.
Right. Yeah. You didn't get like a Just My Imagination or a My Girl sort of like,
No,
yeah.
no. So, well, that was a cool thing about,
Right.
actually starting with a
Yeah.
single note line.
Is this kind of the first big session you did with David Foster, or had you been working with him before this?
Power of Love. I had done the first time I worked with him. I had been recommended by this engineer that used to be his engineer in the 80s, a guy named Woody Woodruff, right? Who, my friend who I was working with a lot, this guy Bob Parr, wanted to try David Foster's engineer on the session, right? For this girl that he was producing. So Woody did the session and it was fun, and I did my overdub stuff. And yeah, like 3 days later, I get a call from him. He's up at David's in Malibu, and they need a guitar like that day, that afternoon. And it was a favor for Paul Anka, a demo favor for Paul Anka, who I've ended up working with for 30 years as not just a guy doing guitars, but like his arranger.
Okay.
And, I mean, it turned into a big thing, but not from that. Paul wasn't even there. But I remember driving up to Malibu thinking like, thinking about the records that David did,
Yeah.
right? Chicago and Earth, Wind and Fire and this stuff. And I'm thinking, this guy will probably tell me every note
Right.
that he wants, or worse yet, it'll be written out.
Yeah.
Like every note I'm going to play. Like, I didn't know, because his records were so arranged and so
Yeah.
everything just fit perfectly that I figured, he had to be coming up with all that stuff.
Hmm.
And so, but, I was in such a mindset of like, it did take so long to start getting recognized, and every little break, was big, because I wasn't on the road. I was the guy that was like by the phone,
Hmm.
and so many of the things that you could call a break were because I was available, and I had sort of, like I said, worked my way into like the engineer saying, "Oh,
Hmm.
I worked with this guy the other night, it
Right.
was pretty good." And so I went up there, and there were like three. There was an engineer and another guy and another guy. There was like three or four people in the studio, but David wasn't in the studio yet.
Yeah.
He had his first place. The studio was separate from the main house
Was
and
this
stuff.
chart maker, or was this
He
predated?
called it chart maker, and then he called
Okay.
the next place chart maker, and
Okay.
the next place.
Okay.
But he came in like, "Hey man, I'm David Foster. What do you got?
Yeah.
Kind of thing." And I don't really remember much, but I had this Strat, and I played a clean part, and I remember I played a nylon string part and stuff, and I thought I did pretty good,
Yeah.
right? And then I remember at the end of the session, he said, um, "Hey, I got to do a demo for this young girl in Canada named Celine. Would you want to do that?" And then he never called me for that, whatever that demo was. And then like a year went by, and David thought that he would try being like a movie composer, right?
Hmm.
And he did one movie, this movie called One Good Cop. It was like
Hmm.
Michael Keaton, and it was
Hmm.
like a whatever. But he hated, being a movie composer and
Hmm.
working with a director and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So he tried it for that one movie, but I got a call to play on a session that they threw together for like a cue for that movie or
Hmm.
something, right? So that was the second time that. So I'm like a little bit familiar,
Hmm.
but no records yet. Haven't done a thing, and it's funny because I thought he was like all through the '80s cranking, but according to him, from like after Chicago and before like Power of Love, those years,
Hmm.
like he couldn't get arrested. He
Yeah.
he had gotten cold, as a
Yeah.
producer, and I think that also played into that. I became part of the new sort of hit package thing,
Yeah.
and the first song was Power of Love.
Wow.
So the first real call, where I got to come in and do
Yeah.
my thing,
Yeah.
was that tune, and because it wasn't just one little part, it was I got to do,
Yeah.
if you the first thing when I walked in, he said, "Do you have a bass with you?" And I said, "No, but I have a baritone, right?" So I started out by doubling the bass
Yeah.
through because he thought the synth bass needed a little more point to it or
Yeah.
something. But yeah, and then
So
uh,
is this guitar though?
yeah, for the clean part, and then the crank thing, I had
The
that
EMG.
yeah, the other
Okay.
one.
And what kind of amp was that?
That was like for most of the clean stuff I did. I was using the car Slant
Car.
6V.
Okay.
That was it's right there.
Yeah, we'll get a
It
shot
was
of that.
yeah, it was my clean sound.
Hmm.
And then I don't know what year it was
Well, it
that
was
that
93 that song came out, so presumably before then.
yeah. Oh, definitely up to there. What I was going to say was then the Egnator IE4 came
The
out.
module
Yeah.
one, okay.
And that kind of became my not kind of, that became my like rack
Uh-huh.
preamp
Uh-huh.
rig thing into a like a VHT.
And for the textural delay stuff, was that H3000 and some other?
Yeah, I had the H3000 by then, but the first thing I got was a TC 2290.
Mm,
Remember, it was like the first thing I could put in a rack,
yeah.
and then I got a couple of other little things. I think I had like a dig, some other that other time. I don't know. I had some other delay or something, and a couple of things. But the TC gave me like a rack,
Yeah.
and it was a good sounding delay, but it was like just a mono
Yeah.
delay. But I had the panning thing, and I thought that was great
Yeah.
and stuff. But no, I just, man, I used to have to, before that, I would have to ask the engineer to put a delay
Yeah.
on me and stuff. And I used to say I was so poor I had to play my own delays.
That's a good one, actually.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear you play a little bit of it if you're so down.
Yeah.
The whispers in the morning of lovers sleep and tight are rolling by like thunder now as I look in your eyes. I hold on to your body and feel each move you make. Your voice is warm and tender, a love that I could not forsake, 'cause I'm your lady and you are my man. Whenever you reach for me, I'll do all that I can, even though there may be times it seems I'm far away. Never wonder where I am, 'cause I am always by your side. 'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man. you.